Good afternoon and welcome, everyone. I hereby call the meeting to order. This is an open meeting of the Broadcasting Board of Governors being held in compliance with the Sunshine Act. A digital recording of this meeting will be available for on-demand viewing on the BBG website, www.bbg.gov. We are holding this meeting even though, as all of us know, the House of Representatives is not meeting today. Hearings have been postponed as of House votes. Our thoughts and prayers, all of us, are with House Majority Whip Steve Scalise, with the two Capitol policemen who have been injured in this horrible shooting. And the congressional staffer who also has been hospitalized, has been shot. Our thoughts and prayers are with them, and all of us have profound gratitude to the Capitol Police for their bravery, their heroism in saving clearly what was a significant number of lives by their actions this morning. And so I just ask for a moment of silence first. Thank you. And then turn to some bittersweet news here at the Broadcasting Board. Regular attendees of these meetings often hear me or other board members speak proudly of the strength of our BBG team. We say this because we recognize that every success we have derives solely from the work of everyone here and so many others. In short, it's really the people who give so much meaning to this incredible organization. On that note today, I am sad to announce the departure of one of the most important members of our team, Brian Conniff, the president of the Middle East Broadcasting Networks and a stalwart BBG veteran. Brian has run NBN like a maestro for nearly 11 years, and in that time and under his leadership, NBN has grown into a modern, impactful organization that responds effectively to the region's evolving media environment and challenges. Brian, you know this, the board and I, the CEO and the rest of the BBG team are sincerely grateful to you for your work, your leadership, and your friendship. We thank you for all that you have done over many years of dedicated service to the agency, and we wish you well. At this time, I'd like to present a certificate to you on behalf of the board and the CEO, a certificate of appreciation for your storied career. And I'll just read it. Broadcasting Board of Governors Certificate of Appreciation presented to Brian Conniff for outstanding effort, creativity, leadership, and initiative, and extraordinary contributions to furthering the mission of the BBG through his 11 years as NBN president to inform, engage, and connect people around the world in support of freedom and democracy. Thank you, Brian.
Thank you, Ken. Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Brian. Your departure is bittersweet, but we will not miss a beat here at NBN. Today, I am pleased to announce the appointment of Ambassador Alberto Fernandez as NBN's new president beginning July 17th, 2017. Alberto. Ambassador Fernandez joins the BBG from the Middle East Media Research Institute memory, where he served as vice president, and he continues to serve, I guess, until July 17th from 2015 to 2017. Prior to that, he served at the U.S. Department of State in many roles from 1983 to 2015, including as coordinator for the Center for Strategic Counterterrorism, ambassador to the Republic of Equatorial Guinea, director of public diplomacy for Near Eastern Affairs, and director of public diplomacy in Iraq. Ambassador Fernandez is widely regarded as one of our most knowledgeable and impactful U.S. voices in the Arab language media. He is a fluent Arabic speaker. He is the perfect combination of skill, experience, and regional expertise that we need to continue driving forward on all the progress that has occurred under Brian's leadership. The board is thrilled that he has accepted this challenge, and we look forward to welcoming him to the BBG team. Ambassador Fernandez is with us here today, and I'd like to invite him to say a few words.
Thank you very much. It's a real honor and a real pleasure. I'm humbled to have the opportunity to join the BBG team and to follow in the footsteps of Brian Conniff. It's a real honor and I'm really looking forward to it. Thank you very much.
I'm going to turn the microphone over to Brian. I thought you were being shy before.
Well, thank you very much. I'm very fortunate. My nearly 30 years out of my 40-something year career have been spent with international broadcasting in a variety of different positions and jobs, all of which I've enjoyed and have found professionally rewarding. And at the end, you can't ask for more than that. And I wish everyone was as fortunate as I have been in the time that I've spent pursuing this mission. Over the years, I've seen many changes. I remember watching from Munich, from RFA when the Iron Curtain came down and the Warsaw Pact countries fell like dominoes. That was a very exciting time. I remember attending the inauguration of the shortwave stations in Sri Lanka and Morocco, the very stations that Andre is now closing. So there's certain symmetry to that. But that's the right thing to do. That shows change and movement forward. Shortwave was the right thing to do when we inaugurated, and it's the right thing to do to close it now. And I remember attending the launch of VOA's first FM station in Ulaanbaatar, of all places. But since that time, FM is a major distribution point that all of our networks use to reach millions of people every day. And more recently, I'm proud of the work MBN has been doing countering violent extremism with creative and innovative programming. But technology evolves, people come and go, and structures change. But the one thing that doesn't change and hasn't changed is our mission. And that's something that I think we need to hold on to, and sometimes we forget. There are millions of people around the world that don't have access to information, accurate, balanced news and information. And that's what we do, and that's what we should focus on. The audience doesn't care what our structure is. Our audience doesn't care who's in charge, but they care about us fulfilling their needs, which is information. And that's what I'm so proud of having worked and accomplished over the many years. We get all wrapped up in these administrative, bureaucratic squabbles here in the Cohen Building and elsewhere, but that doesn't really matter. The audience doesn't care about that. So my parting words are not to get distracted by what doesn't matter and to continue to focus on what does matter, and that's our mission and fulfilling the needs of our audience.
Yeah.
Beautifully said and very, very touching remarks, and a fitting beginning to the end, since you're not leaving us and you're going to remain on as a consultant in the transition and beyond, but a beautiful and very fitting way to begin to end your historic tenure at MBN, and all of us are deeply grateful for your service. And we'll take your words of wisdom to heart. Thank you. And we also look forward to working closely with Alberto starting on July 17th as well. So, and I want to thank you for the seamless transition that is taking place. Now this is the time of the board meeting, as I do at the start of every board meeting, to outline ongoing threats to freedom to the press around the world. We continue to see press freedom decline around the world. It's incredibly alarming on its face, and we note a few disturbing trends. Last month in Cambodia, Prime Minister Hun Sen called journalists, quote, foreign service. Then just a week later, a member of the Cambodian National Assembly accused the Voice of America and other media of seeking to destroy the reputation of the country's leadership. Likewise, in Russia, lawmakers accused the Russian languages services of Radio Free Europe, Radio Liberty, and VOA, as well as CNN, of, quote, engaging in propaganda and sowing confusion in the Russian electoral process during the September 2016 parliamentary elections. Russian officials continue to block RFERL freelancers from official events using lack of accreditation as an excuse. Most recently, Alexei Navalny, the famous human rights activist who routinely challenges the Kremlin, was covering a a protest in support of opposition activists and was pulled out of the area and threatened. In Azerbaijan, on May 12th, a district court ruling in Baku provided legal justification for the Azerbaijani government's censorship of RFE-RL's Azerbaijani service website. The blocking began on March 27th. I'll also highlight some examples of BBG journalists falling under threat or open attacks on journalists. Let me start with Venezuela. VOA Spanish service reporter Alvaro Alhurra has been the victim of harassment and intimidation over the past several months while covering protests in Caracas for the Voice of America. Most recently, on May 18th, while recording a protest in the center of Caracas, a platoon of National Guard officers stopped him, took his bag and money, and ordered him to stop reporting. Angola, reporters for VOA's Portuguese to Africa service, including producer Shiona Junior and others who are preparing special election programming in Angola, have been harassed and threatened by government officials since April. Armenia. On May 14th, RFE-RL Armenian service reporter Sisak Gabrielian was attacked a second time in 6 weeks while reporting on allegations of vote buying by the ruling party. During that day's municipal elections, he was also attacked on April 2nd while reporting on alleged vote buying by the ruling party during parliamentary elections that day. China. Ai Len, a Beijing-based news assistant for VOA's Mandarin service, has been intimidated and harassed by Chinese security personnel and several times throughout the year. Most recently, on May 13th, the authorities interrogated Ai Len on his background, VOA personnel, and coverage. Indeed, harassment of BBG journalists often goes beyond past threats and strong-arming. 3 of our journalists today remain imprisoned in Crimea, Turkmenistan, and Vietnam, and we call for their immediate release. Crimea. In Crimea, the trial of RFE-RL's Mykola Shemenya continues to drag on. His court date has now been pushed back to June 21st. Shemenya has been charged with calling for separatism. He could face 5 years in prison if found guilty. Turkmenistan. We continue to call for the release of RFE-RL's Saparmamed Nepeskuliev. He was detained by agents of Turkmenistan's National Security Ministry on July 7th and has been held in 2015 and is held incommunicado ever since. Vietnam. Nguyen Van Hoa, a citizen journalist who has worked with RFA's Vietnamese service as a videographer, was detained in January. The 22-year-old is being held incommunicado on charges of, quote, abusing democratic freedoms to infringe on the interests of the state, an offense that carries a maximum sentence of 7 years in prison. Lastly, Stanislav Asayev, a blogger from eastern Ukraine who contributes to RFE-RL's Ukrainian service, has been reported missing. Since June 2nd, it's believed that he was seized in Donetsk and is being forcibly held by Russian-backed separatist forces controlling the region. We demand that he be released immediately and that his safety be guaranteed. Again, we call for the immediate release of these journalists and demand that harassment for all journalists comes to a stop. We now turn to board business. Let's turn to the business of the board. Before us today, the presence of 5 or more governors satisfies the board's quorum requirement, and a quorum being present, the majority may conduct business based on majority vote. On June 1st, the board received by email materials for the consent agenda, which allowed sufficient time for all governors to review the agenda prior to the meeting. We did not receive comments from any governors. This month's consent agenda is attached at tabs 8 to 12, and it includes draft minutes of the April 6, 2017 meeting, a draft resolution honoring the Voice of America's Swahili Service's 55th anniversary, the draft resolution honoring the Voice of America's Azerbaijani Service 35th anniversary, a draft resolution honoring the Voice of America's Kurdish Service 25th anniversary, a draft resolution honoring Radio Free Europe, Radio Liberty's North Caucasus Service 15th anniversary. So at this time, I'd like to ask if any governors have any comments on the consent agenda. There being none, do any governors wish to move for adoption of the consent agenda by the board?
I so move.
Great. Ambassador Crocker, is there a second? Ambassador Kornblue. Are there any, all in favor, please say aye. Okay, no objections, so it is. Now we turn to the public comment section. The board permits members of the public who register to attend our open meetings to use the opportunity to speak for up to 3 minutes. I understand that today we have 2 members of the public here today who wish to make remarks. Please come to the table and introduce yourselves before you speak. Yeah, up to the microphone. Into the microphone, yes, thank you. Yes.
Okay, 3 minutes.
Yes, thank you.
Thank you so much. And hi, I'm Sasha Gong. I used to work in the Mandarin service, and I'm now on administrative leave. I guess some of you may know that the case. And here I want to take the opportunity to thank to so many VOA colleagues who expressed their support to me and who was so nice to me. And I would say, well, unless you are in a very bad situation, you really don't know how many friends you have. So I would like to say thank you. And thank you so much from the bottom of my heart, and I love you. And one thing I want to say is the importance of Voice of America to me. I started listening to Voice of America when I was 15. And in 1977, when I was in a Chinese jail, my interrogator, among the first interrogation sessions, they asked me, did you listen to enemy radio? I said, yeah, Voice of America. In that time, it was a jailable offense. I spent my 21st birthday in jail, and partly because I listened to Voice of America. I deeply, deeply believe in the mission. I will fight for the mission. I will die for the mission, for sure. I will fight for the truth, fight for the new standard. I think that kind of conviction, I guarantee I have that kind of conviction. One thing yesterday, Senator Rubio and Secretary Tillerson had a great conversation in the Senate Foreign Relations hearings. And Senator Rubio, I so agree with him because he came from communist Cuba. I came from communist China. We share some background, some beliefs, and I think Senator Rubio made a very good proposal. And also, I really oppose to Secretary Tillerson. He said he totally agree. He would like to look into it. So what I'm going to do, I am speaking for other 4 colleagues. The 5 of us were placed in administrative leave by Voice of America. Now I'm speaking for all of them. We are looking forward to the IG investigation. We'll work with IG. We'll do anything possible to get the truth out. Thank you so much. Thank you, board members. Thank you, colleagues.
Thank you.
My name is Hu Chen Zhang. I'm a senior editor at VOA Mandarin Service. I've been working for VOA for more than 26 years. I believe I have served VOA honorably, but unfortunately, I'm one of the 5 people that have been put on admin leave. My heart is very heavy that the thing has come to this stage, and I'm particularly sad about the damage to the credibility and reputation of Voice of America, especially Mandarin broadcasting to China. I'm very encouraged by the exchange between Senator Rubio and Secretary Tillerson yesterday, and I hope this investigation by the Office of Inspector General will proceed, and we will get to the bottom of things, and the whole thing will come to a timely and satisfactory manner. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And now I'd like to ask CEO and Director John Lansing to give a brief report on agency operations since our last board meeting.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. First, a key personnel move as a continuation of our strategic shift to streamlining our operations to focus on impact. I've appointed Jeffrey Trimble as Deputy Director of the BBG. Jeff will serve as my deputy and key strategic advisor and will help manage the strategy and operations of all U.S. international media. Next, a few updates, including on the situation with the Mandarin service. VOA has consistently demonstrated high standards and journalistic professionalism. To that end, I have initiated an investigation into events that transpired around the VOA Mandarin interview of Gu Wangji. As with any high-quality journalist or journalistic institution, it's my firm belief that we should not draw any conclusions in any regard about these events until we have the full possession of the facts. And I am committed that we shall do so. As such, I have directed BBG to stand up an impartial, independent investigation aimed at determining the facts around this interview. To do so, BBG has retained an independent, reputable law firm to lead this investigation and provide this agency and you with the facts. And they are engaged in that investigation now. Since this investigation is ongoing, we will not comment further, save to say that we should reserve judgment on all fronts until the investigation is concluded. Now on to the President's executive order. In April, I reported that the President issued a new executive order on a comprehensive plan for reorganizing the executive branch. Under the order, the head of each agency is required to submit to the OMB an agency plan to, quote, reorganize governmental functions and eliminate unnecessary agencies, components of agencies, and agency programs in order to improve the efficiency, effectiveness, and accountability of agencies. I want you to know, governors, that we take this executive order very seriously from President Trump and are treating it as such. We want this to be a transparent process and have begun soliciting internal and external input for our agency plan. Matt Sipolowski, our White House liaison, is leading our effort. I believe the BBG should be a leader among our peer agencies when it comes to setting a standard of excellence on how to run an agency responsibly and in line with private sector principles on efficiency and impact. Now, there's been other reporting in the public square regarding Persian content on Voice of America and RFE. To ensure that our Iran coverage remains completely objective and fact-based, and at the request of Director Amanda Bennett and President Tom Kent from RFERL and Voice of America, I've asked for an external independent content review of VOA's Persian News Network and RFE's Radio Farda. This third-party review would assist Amanda and Tom in clearly articulating their commitment to professional journalistic standards regarding our coverage to Iran or any of our coverage. As we hold ourselves accountable, we will continue to do more external independent content reviews. Now it's my really great pleasure to turn to the highlights from our ICC, and that's where each of the 5 networks will show and demonstrate some of their more recent work. And we're going to begin today with Voice of America in an excellent series called Off the Highway. As part of our intensified focus on telling America's story, Voice of America Director Amanda Bennett will describe a new project that includes reporting trips from Minnesota to Louisiana, profiles of rural President Trump voters, and future trips into Kentucky and Texas. Amanda.
Thank you, John. And as CEO Lansing has said, we are redoubling our commitment to telling America's story and finding it very exciting. And as you may know, we opened our first Silicon Valley bureau to great acclaim in Silicon Valley. We've also redirected a great deal of our reporting resources towards the part of America off the coasts. Off the Highway you'll notice that it's got a lot of subtitles in there. That's intended to make it easy to share with all the language services. And so far, it's been translated and posted in English, Russian, Turkish, Armenian, Azerbaijani, Albanian, and Uzbek, with many more on the way. And the themes are going forward, as CEO Lansing said, are going to focus on things like the digital divide and rural millennials and farmers of color in the middle of the country. So please look at one of the episodes of Off the Highway.
A lot of elderly people now are around, and you don't see many young kids. They're all gone. There's just not much here for them to do. Back in the 60s and late 70s, there were shoe stores, there was coast-to-coast stores, there were hardware stores, there was barber shops, there was restaurants. Store here, I used to come in here when I was a young boy. My parents used to bring me in here to get my hair cut. And when you walk in the door, there'd be 10, 13 people sitting in the chair, all talking about businesses that happened during the day and waiting in line to get a haircut. Today, the store's closed and the people are gone. I feel real sad, yeah. Real sad that all the shops are gone and buildings are empty. It just feels like it's a ghost town now. I still like it, yeah. I like the small towns. Yeah, I'll be here until I'm gone.
Thank you. Now turning to RFERL and a focus on their investigative reporting. Tom, go ahead, please.
Good afternoon. I'd like to talk today about the impact of our work, how investigative reporting by RFERL has had direct effects in the countries we served and exposed what's unknown. Let me begin with a startling report from Uzbekistan, one of the most closed countries in our geographies. The government won't let us have a bureau there. Our website is blocked. Still, we have our radio service in Uzbek, and the website gets nearly 2 million visits a month, mainly from people in Uzbekistan who found a way around the blockages. And we have our news sources inside Uzbekistan. One of them gave us hidden camera police video from a nursery school showing staff members threatening the children in their care. Authorities held a trial for one of the teachers involved, but in secret. The case became a national story only after we publicized the video, even tracking down, by phone from Prague, the grandfather of one of the children. After our reporting, authorities put other teachers on trial. They dismissed 10 local and regional officials. They launched an investigation of every nursery school in the country. But the story isn't over. The school director is still there. Here's an English version of some of the video.
Bir xil bolalar yutuq bo'lib qolgan. Qo'rquvdan kechasi joyiga siyib qo'yadigan darajaga borib qolgan. Ular kutib olishda ishonsangiz, voy balajonim, voy asalim deb shunaqa shirin gapiradi. Bir necha yildan beri rivojlangan ekan, siz endi bilyapsiz shu narsani.
Here's another example of impact reporting from last year. In Ukraine, a team from RFERL filmed cars coming and going from official offices at night. The furtive trips were by Ukrainian oligarchs, meeting secretly with government officials. Sometimes they even changed cars in an effort to avoid detection. When authorities later denied the meetings, we had the evidence. Reporter Michael Tkach won Ukraine's top TV reporting award for this work. RFERL's reporters in Tajikistan interviewed a Tajik woman by video from Saudi Arabia, telling of abuse she suffered at the hands of her Saudi employer. We posted the interview on YouTube, leading the Tajik Foreign Ministry to bring her home. Why is work like this important to our mission? In country after country, RFE-RL's local coverage uncovers official malfeasance and cover-ups. It creates a sense that government should be accountable. It shows the power of an independent press. It proves that even in countries that try to block information, news that matters to citizens can't be stopped. Our coverage also evokes the values of charity and compassion. In Russia, reporters for Current Time produced a fascinating and heartbreaking piece from a town near Moscow inhabited mainly by the blind. We focused on one resident, Sergei Ivanov, living in a dilapidated apartment shared by an alcoholic who abused him. Our web video sparked a national charity drive in Russia that raised $25,000 for a new apartment for Ivanov. He received hundreds of letters of support based on our reporting. The local governor invited him to a public meeting, and most interestingly, he got requests for interviews from top Russian media outlets.
Эта история, она твою жизнь как-то поменяла, изменила?
Да, изменила. Мне захотелось жить, не захотелось смерти, как сказать. Вот теперь, да, захотелось жить, что что-то будет дальше это лучше.
Thank you. Thank you, Tom. Radio Free Asia President Libby Liu will describe the complementary work between VOA and RFA during the Cambodia elections. Libby?
Thank you. Today I'd like to highlight the power of VOA and RFA working together to empower citizens living under authoritarian rule on the other side of the world. This is a long and dangerous election cycle, and I want to commend our people for risking their lives every day to speak truth in an otherwise muzzled media environment. 2 years ago, Cambodia held national elections during which RFA did our trademark border-to-border coverage, making sure everyone knew their rights under the Cambodian law to register and to vote for their prime minister, based on the issues that they cared about. Despite the many despicable and deceptive efforts by Hun Sen and his ruling party, the people of Cambodia understood that their votes were being discarded, and that Hun Sen would continue to rule their country regardless of such trivialities as elections, and they took to the streets and protested for more than a month. Hun Sen learned from that humiliating experience. Leading up to the nationwide communal elections on June 4th this year, Hun Sen pulled out all the stops to silence the media and to intimidate voices to achieve the outcome he wanted. Large numbers of soldiers were trucked into certain communes so that their votes could throw the results. Election observers were strong-armed by local officials to leave polling stations voluntarily while CPP officials stood front and center at voting stations. Poor laborers were not allowed to vote. Migrant workers were not allowed to go to their home communes to vote. Although 80,000 observer IDs were issued to CPP loyalists, activists were tied up in temporary arrests to prevent them from using their own late-issued observer IDs. Hun Manet, the son, ran a disinformation campaign from what he called the cyber war room. The country's leaders publicly threatened civil war, beatings, and other consequences if the election did not go their way. Early on, threatened by trumped-up charges, RFA had to exfiltrate our election coverage lead, a U.S. citizen, so that he would not be thrown in prison like so many democracy activists and independent voices. On May 13th, Hun Sen used the World Economic Forum press conference to slam journalists at RFA and Cambodian Daily as foreign servants. On May 24th, a ruling party high official attacked VOA, as you heard, and other media as being tools to damage the reputation of the country's leader, later accusing the United States of funding programs in Cambodia to foment color revolutions. But once awakened, can citizens be beaten back down into silence? We think not. VOA and RFA together made sure that for every dirty trick pulled, truth was spoken to empower the people. When Hun Sen threatened to terminate 100 to 200 people if his rule was threatened, VOA made sure that the people knew that U.S. elected officials Alan Lowenthal, Stephen Chabot, and Ed Royce called on the State Department and the U.S. Embassy to publicly support the rule of law and to respect the rights of every Cambodian citizen to vote. The position of the U.S. congressman spurred the Khmer government officials to release a statement dismissing them and claiming that, in fact, their government was actually implementing democracy through its actions. On June 4th, Election Day, boxing and karaoke programs dominated the state-run airwaves. No news was seen at all. RFA reporters were online live casting from all over the country from 7 a.m. to 10:30 p.m. that day, pulling in 1.5 million views and over 45,000 viewers chiming in. 3 other organizations had to run our live cast to fill the gaping hole of election news in that country. VOA's Khmer service created the hashtag VOA Khmer Elections 2017 and created the first Khmer language live blog in any media to run all the major events, the announcements, the reactions of the people, and comments from VOA and all other sources about the communal elections. Our reporter, assigned to cover the man himself on election day, had the gall to ask him if he thought he was going to win. Hun Sen retorted that only his ignorance of this system could possibly prompt him to ask such a ridiculous question. Silly us. Early in the morning, before any numbers were tallied, we received anonymously faxed election results showing the CPP win. The mysterious results were exactly the same figures that were finally released once the votes were tallied. All of Hun Sen's dirty tricks, brutal intimidation, roadblocks, and stringent measures to prevent voters ensured that he would have a CPP victory. And we know that in the coming year, the pressure's only going to get worse leading up to the national elections. But truth is out. The ruling party has a lot more to lose, and the voters have a lot more to gain by going to the polls. So thank you.
Thank you, Libby. Well done. I now turn to Cuba, where preliminary results from a BBG survey conducted on the island indicates that Cubans are hungry for facts about U.S.-Cuba relations. The Martis recently released a documentary about the invasion of the Bay of Pigs that received a lot of positive attention, and Director of the Office of Cuba Broadcasting, Malule Gonzalez, will talk about that documentary and show a clip. Malule?
Thank you, John. I take a minute before that to mention that yesterday we appointed our Central News Director, seasoned journalist Wilfredo Cancio, come to us from having worked at El Nuevo Herald, Telemundo, and many other media entities, and he has an excellent knowledge of the Cuban reality and the Cuban needs. So as John mentioned, one of the highlights of OCB's recent programming is a documentary, Alas de Libertad, in which for the first time ever, the pilots of the Brigada 2506, the men who fought Bay of Pigs, tell their story and unveil details of the unfortunate events that took place 58 years ago.
Will not be under any condition be an intervention in Cuba by United States Armed Forces.
Es indescriptible lo que se siente cuando están matando cubanos.
El problema que tenía la Fuerza Aérea que todos los pilotos querían morirse por la patria.
I have made very clear that we are not communists.
El general viene con un papelón así de Washington y dice, los vuelos han sido parados 48 horas. Y le dije, general, esto, aquí se acabó la invasión.
What happened to that? I think there were 3 planes, and they flew air cover for an hour. And they were supposed to give air cover to the B-26s that were coming in. And unfortunately, between all of them, they got the hours mixed up. So the result was that the B-26s came in an hour late and were all shot down.
So, the documentary had numerous pickups by other media, including independent media in Cuba. And as seen on Facebook, many young Cubans in the island reacted to the story It sparked conversation that allowed them to discern and have a complete version of the historic event. Some even learned about it for the first time ever, and even about who Kennedy was. The documentary will soon air in PBS. It keeps showing a strong social media engagement, and it'll be part of a permanent exhibition at the Brigadas Museum.
Very
Thank
good.
you.
Thank you, Malule. Now turning to MBN. MBN under Brian's leadership has been a leader in exposing the lie that is ISIS. Next month, Alhurra will launch a new program that interviews ISIS defectors who talk about their experience in the extremist group and why they left. So Brian, why don't you talk about the project Exiting Hell?
Okay, thanks, John. Last year, Delusional Paradise was launched, which was a documentary series that focused on the families and communities that were the victims of ISIS's atrocities in recent years. Taking the next step, Exiting Hell is a 13-part series of 30-minute episodes that consist of one-on-one interviews with an ISIS defector. The interview probes why the defectors joined ISIS in the first place, what drove them to defect, and what their life is like today. The team filming the 13 episodes traveled to Iraq, Lebanon, Turkey, and Morocco. So now I'd like to show a short video introducing the 13-part series.
ولد عمي وقرايبي يعني بالدولة الإسلامية.
أكو زواج وأكو هناك يعني شهوات وسبي.
إجا ذاك وصار يعطي خطبة إنه الجنة تنتظركم كل شهيد له 70 حورية وكل حورية لها 100 خادمة.
أنا ما صدقت بهم ولكن قلت لك جبروني بالتنظيم مال داعش.
شفت القتل وشفت الإجرام وشفت الخطف.
فرحانين انه بس ناخذ شهوتنا من عندها، يعني عمليه الترجي هي هسه اللي واقفه او خانقتني.
مره ليش طالعه من بيتها يعني وشعرها مبين ما اعرف شلون، قال انت النسوان بدك تفوتن تتدربن، مجلوده يعني جسمها كله ممزق تمزيق خالص ومنظرها يا محمد شلون.
جابوش عسكري يعني عسكري نظام يعني. كم شو جابوه على دوار النعيم. أول ما جابوه يعني دجوه على السحب مكلبشين إيديه على إيديه ورا على ظهره. أول ما ذبحوه يعني
So the series will premiere July 1st, and we will subtitle all 13 episodes in English for any of the other entities that would be interested in carrying them or translating them into their languages. Thank you.
Thank you, Brian. It's really well done. Governors, that's just a small example of some of the work that's happening. I'm so very proud of not only the quality that's been improving at all 5 of our networks, but also the level of impact that we're having under the leadership of our excellent 5 presidents. And so I'm proud to bring that to you today. I'll open the floor for any questions or comments.
Yeah, thank you, John. I just want to applaud the extraordinary quality of the work. As I was sitting here watching it, I was thinking back to when I first joined the board in 2013 and just how much has changed in terms of the quality of the videos being shot, the way that the stories are being told, and the impact that they're having. And I think this speaks to your leadership and to the leadership of the people around the table. This is obviously a very critical moment for U.S. international media and for freedom of the press around the world. And so it's you see just how important the work is when you see these kind of stories being shown across all of our platforms.
So one final thing, and I'll conclude my report. I'm very happy to report that the Nathanson Scholarship has been renewed for a second year. It's the Public Diplomacy Scholarship Program. The board, you'll recall, that this scholarship is provided by former BBG Chairman Mark Nathanson and his wife Jane. The Nathanson Scholarship identifies emerging leaders in the field of public diplomacy and international media and funds their participation in executive training at the nonpartisan Aspen Institute. This year's Nathanson Scholars are Vivian Chakarian from VOA Program Manager, Oscar Rodriguez from the Office of Cuba Broadcasting, Mariana Drak from RFE, Rohit Mahajan from Radio Free Asia, Omar Mahmoud from Middle East Broadcasting, and Catherine, or we call her Kate Nieper, from IBB. So I congratulate all of them, and I know from last year this was one fantastic leadership training experience and help us train the next generation of leaders for the BBG.
Thank you, John. We're all very grateful to former Chair Nathanson and his wife for endowing these and for the opportunity for our staff to take part in the program. Are there any questions from the governors at all? Questions or comments? Governor, Ambassador Kornblum.
Yeah, I just didn't want to go without echoing the chairman's compliments to everybody. I thought those videos were incredible, and the work that you all are doing is really, really impressive. Thank you for sharing all that.
Yeah, I found them powerful. Of course, what counts is what our target audiences consider them. So where are we now? I know this has been a focus for you, John, in terms of our ability to measure impact.
So we inaugurated the impact model from last year, and now we set targets based on 28 measurements of impact. Impact can be anything from level of trust that people have in our content, whether they share it or not, whether they comment on it or not, any action somebody takes as a result of experiencing our content. And we ask all 5 network presidents and their staffs to set impact goals going into this year that'll be measured against, and each of their impact goals is a higher standard than it was the year before. And so now we have a baseline of impact, and then we have the first year of setting an additional goal of increasing impact, and we'll continue to do that year in and year out so that we can report and be accountable to all of you that we're not just reaching audiences, but we're impacting them. And I will say the ICC has been a leader in this and in the way they work together, and they learn from each other and they work with each other. I think Libby demonstrated it so well in her presentation about how VOA, for instance, and RFA are having incredible impact in Cambodia.
So what are the means of measuring? Is this polling that we do? Or?
It's some polling, it's some qualitative, it's some quantitative. Some of it comes from digital metrics that we are able to get off of social media networks, for example. But it's a variety. Some of it is even interviewing defectors who are coming out of North Korea, for example, or defectors out of other Tibet or the Uyghur region.
Other questions or comments? Secretary Warden.
I may. Intrigued by the idea of sharing these videos among the different services. I think you referred specifically to that, but seems like a really good idea, especially with an issue that cuts across regions and languages like the Daesh ISIS issue. So I would simply applaud that and encourage everybody to think broadly about sharing those resources.
Thank you. Other comments or questions? John?
No, that's my report.
Great. Well, let me turn to item E on the board agenda, which is other items for consideration for the next board meeting. The next board meeting will be held here at BBG headquarters in Washington on August 30th, 2017. I'll work closely with my fellow governors and CEO Lansing to develop the agenda for this meeting. I encourage all governors to give me or the BBG staff input on the topics that you wish to see addressed at the next meeting. But for now, let me ask if any governors wish to move to adjourn the meeting. Is there a motion to adjourn?
I so move.
Ambassador Crocker moves. Is there a second?
Second.
Ambassador Kornblue seconds. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
This concludes the formal meeting of the BBG. I want to thank everyone for all the hard work that went into this session today. Thank you very much.